Alright everyone, welcome back to part 3 of my Writing Wednesdays video series. Today is the final chapter in how I've created my series Bible, how I outline what my writing process looks like, which includes free templates for you guys over on my website. Today I think I am sharing the most anticipated and most requested template, which is my template for my series Bible. This is my series Bible. If you've been following along and you've been following kind of what my method is, then you know I seriously recommend investing in some binders or some project folders with some tabs or something and some clear plastic sheet protectors, because that is basically how I organize everything. It makes it really easy to take your work with you on the go or pack this or travel with this so that you are always prepared. You're never at a moment where you're like, oh no, I need to write a chapter, but I forgot that one minor detail. You'll have it with you in your handy dandy little project folder. Last week I shared with you my characters, how I get to know my characters, and a character profile template free to download for you. And this week I am finally sharing the series Bible template. Said the templates are free to download. Once you download them, you can manipulate them, use them to however you need to best suit your project. My series Bible template specifically is probably geared more towards Christian fiction writers, inspirational fiction writers, historical fiction writers, because that is kind of what I write basically, but it can also work for contemporary. I've included, I think, a couple of different versions on my website. When you download it, there's like a couple different versions of, you know, maybe if you need more historical background, historical context, and there's a couple different pages in there. But if you don't, if you're just writing contemporary or a contemporary series and you want to delete those, feel free to do so. It's whatever works best for you. Just this is kind of random, but I really truly recommend in the back of your series Bible leaving 1 or 2 extra sheet protectors open, because that way if you do write something down on a sticky note, you can just kind of slide it in to that extra sheet protector, and then you can always go back and edit and add to your series Bible on your computer later. You can keep a digital copy of it and a physical copy. If you write or are more into fantasy series or series that require a lot of world building, like science fiction or dystopian or fantasy, like I said, you should definitely go and check out Brittany Wang. I will be leaving her channel description and information and links in the description box below, but she has a really great series Bible template for that kind of genre. Mine, I think, focuses mostly on the information I need to build a world in a historical time period, as well as Christian fiction, adding in that biblical context to it as well. And I think if you are writing a book and you are planning to create a series Bible, it's really just a matter of looking at all of them, getting a lot of different ideas and creating it yourself, because again, it is your world. No one is saying you have to use my template, you have to use my method, you have to use what I use in order to be successful. But take tips from whatever, take tips from other people, take my templates, manipulate them if you want to, create your own template based off of my template if it helps you. But I just want to make sure that you guys are getting a step in the right direction with my templates. So that's why all of these are free and in the resources tab on my website. Let's hop over to the computer so I can show you how this template works, how I use it, and how you can use it to create your story. And then at the end, I will tell you guys more about my website and how the link to the free download of this template is in the description box below.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So we're talking about series Bibles. On the left side, as always, I have my series Bible template or my template, and on the right side, I have the version that I actually use. So I'm going to be walking you through how to insert all of this information and create the series Bible of your own, while showing you what mine looks like and how I've kind of manipulated it to suit my purposes. So the first thing that you'll notice is in my series Bible, I added in an aesthetic or a mood board for my WIP. And what that is just like an image or a book cover or something that inspires you. You don't have to do this. I just wanted to kind of make mine pop, to give it a nice little fancy schmancy cover page. But over here on the left, you would just put in your name if you wanted to. You could add the name of your series. My series is untitled currently, so I don't have a name for it, but you could certainly do that if you want. But a few things about this title page. The first is that you'll notice there are page numbers. These will be important later on. But other than that, it's very simple. And this whole template is really simple. So if you're looking for something that is really elaborate, this might not be for you. But if you are looking for something that will very simply, very minimalistically lay out your project and your goals for your project, then this is definitely for you. Okay, so moving on to page 2. Page 2 is the table of contents page, and you'll notice that mine already has a lot higher page numbers than this one. I've already begun to fill in mine and add things to it, so that is why. But this table of contents should update automatically for you. You shouldn't have to update it yourself. But this is really important because if you're looking for something quickly, you'll be able to very easily know what page it's on, and you can quickly scroll to that page. Or if you print this out and put it into a binder, you can maybe add some dividers or some tabs on these specific pages that will help you flip to those pages easier. All right, so now we're getting to the basics, and this is where I'm going to have to start blurring things out from you guys so that you don't see all of my top secret WIP information. But the first thing that you'll see is that this is basically just the quick notes about your series. And I put these little explanations here to kind of help you if you're downloading this template and you don't really know what to do with it. You can delete these, you can keep them. I don't really care. It's up to you. But essentially, this is where you're just going to put in the key information about your series, and you can add as many rows or as many columns as you see fit. There are no rules to this. It is completely up to you, the writer, as always, but you can put things in like the title of your series, the title of each book, the genre, subgenres, similar books, comparable books. If you're planning to self-publish if you're planning to traditionally publish, this might be really helpful for you if you're querying, to be able to have a place to note like comparable works. The main message or theme of your series. And this specifically, I think, applies mostly to Christian fiction books where there's usually a message that you want people to come away with from your series or some kind of theme. But also non-Christian fiction books have themes and messages as well. And then target word count, tagline, or pitch. One-sentence summaries. I am big into one-sentence summaries. To me, they are an integral part of the outlining process and the creating process because it's just a little one-liner that's going to get your point across, and that is really helpful for me. But of course, you're welcome to use this or not use this. You can delete categories if you don't think they're applicable to your genre or to your story. You can keep them if you'd like to. You don't have to use this. This is not me telling you that this is how you should write a book, but this is me telling you how I write my books and my book series is. But this is kind of, I think, a good landing page if you're looking for any statistics, especially if you're going to be querying about your books or marketing. So page 4. All right, so this is where you would put in a synopsis. Now remember, a synopsis doesn't have a ending to it. A synopsis leaves it kind of open. It's what you would find on the back cover of a book or on the website of your book or series. So this isn't going to be a full out summary where it summarizes beginning, middle, and end of your story. But basically, you would just type that information in there as I have done here. I kind of very much bare bones summary synopsized, is that a thing? Wrote about my series and my goals for the series because I am still figuring it out. I'm still adding to this. I have a printed version, but I'm still adding to it. I can always reprint it or reprint certain pages if necessary. So that is a big reason why I just love this process so much. But You can always add to it if you don't know all the information, if you don't know exactly where your story is going, but it's really important to kind of just at least have this basic roadmap for your series, because if you don't plan ahead and you know you're going to want to write a series, if you don't plan ahead, even if you are traditionally publishing and your publisher only picks up book 1, let's just say book 1 sells really well and suddenly they want you to write book 2 and 3, and you forgot to figure out, oh, well, what would I do with this series? What would I do with this book if it became a series? You need to make sure that you're leaving options in there and open-ended things, and that you kind of plan ahead, because you never know what can happen, and that's why this is such a good, helpful page. Now we get into the really nitty-gritty stuff. So from here, I like to do a synopsis for each book. So currently you'll see that there's only a page for book 1, just book 1. You can add as many pages, as many headings. All I did was make this a heading so that it would show up in the table of contents. You can add as many headings, as many pages for synopses of books as books are in your series. I only put in 1 because, I figured that would get the point across. But basically, just write a synopsis for each book. And this is what would go on the back cover of each book, or what you would use to market each book specifically. Mine is about a page in length, and I think that's a pretty standard good length for a synopsis. Now we get into summaries. And you'll see that my summary is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 pages, 7 pages of summarizing. And that is because for me, writing a detailed summary, or even just writing a very basic summary of a book, is a very integral part of the outlining process. In my opinion, writing a summary or just a short story of what I want to actually expand upon in my novel is how I come up with the story idea. It's how I get to know the characters. It's how I plan and outline. So it's very important to me to have that in there, which I think is why I included it in my series Bible template. But a summary is going to include beginning, middle, and end of your story. So you can be as detailed as you want. You can write 7 pages like I did, or you can write, summarize your book in 5 sentences or less, just so long as you have Act 1 in there, Act 2, and Act 3. How does your book start? What happens in the middle? And how does your book end? So this is where you can go into more depth for each book, as opposed to your series synopsis and your book synopsis. You can go into detail here to kind of plan that out. All right, next we get into the series outline. So this is where you're going to outline each book. Now, I use a Harvard outline. You guys know this. It is my favorite method for outlining. It is how I do everything when it comes to outlining and planning stories, planning arcs, planning characters. It's just the way that makes the most sense to me. I think this is how, I just noticed a typo. It's a good thing I'm going through this before I publish it on the internet, but I think this is because when I was in middle school and high school and we were learning about writing and outlining writing, they gave us 3 different methods of how to properly make an outline, and this is the one that I just took to the easiest. But you can, of course, just do bullet points. You can do a point-by-point outline. You can do you can be as detailed or as not detailed as you want to be. But basically, here is where my 1-sentence summaries kind of really happen. You can be as detailed here as you want to, but basically, book 1, you could insert like the title of the book here. You don't have to, you can just leave it numbered. And then you would do like the plot necessarily. I put in these cheesy little examples here to kind of give you an idea. You can do your plot, you can do the setting, you can add in, what the main arc is supposed to be, and then you can add in sub-points for little notes. And since this is a series outline, it's not going to be too extravagant because this is just where you're outlining like the main points that take place in the series. I feel like the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory, but I only included a few points in here, obviously, because this is a fake book. This is just a template, but you could add in as many notes as you wanted to. or as many books or as many chapters or points, but essentially it's very simple. You just do, the book, and then you would add in the main points of the book and the notes for each of those points, basically. And all you have to do to add a note for each of those points, go down, hit tab, and there you go. Very, very simple way to make a bare bones series outline. So now we get into outlines for each book. Again, this can be as detailed or as not detailed as you want it to be, but this is how I outline all of my stories ever. Every book, every short story, every novel, every work, every even school essay that I've ever written has been outlined in this way. So what you do, or what I like to do, is break each story into 3 parts or 3 acts. Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. Here I only have 7 chapters, but you can add as many chapters as you need, obviously. And then for each chapter, I would add in a 1-sentence summary for that chapter. I'm not going to do that today, obviously, because this is just a template, like I said, but that is what I would advise you to do. And then you would go in, and what I like to do is add in a sub-point to that chapter and make a point for each scene. So with, again, 1-sentence summaries of what happens in each scene. If I have more notes, I would go in and add another sub-point to that sub-point. I hope this is making sense about what would be happening within that scene if I wanted to add more details than just a 1-sentence summary. And I can get pretty detailed with this. My outline for my book 1 goes about 2.5 to 3 pages. And yeah, that is what that looks like. But that is how I outline all my books. I just do a point-by-point outline with 1-sentence summaries for each chapter, each scene, each part. If you wanted to go in and do a short summary of what happens in Act 1, you could for certainly do that. And if you don't have to. It can be as detailed as you need it to be to tell your story and get your message across. All right, so we go down to overarching or overarching ideas, however you want to say that word. Basically, in here, you would put any themes, any icons, any symbols, motifs, subplots, side arcs, or miscellaneous information that would come up throughout your entire story. For instance, if there's a certain theme of regret that happens throughout your entire story, you could add that there. You could add as many bullet points as you want. You can be as detailed as you want. Again, this is really just the theme. I made this template very simple so that you could either make it very simple or very extravagant, whatever best suits your story's needs. If you are writing, a very short series, you can be very simple with this. If you are writing a very deep fantasy series or historical series that requires a lot of research and planning, you can go in and add as many pages, as many icons, as many parts or dividers as it takes for you to get out every detail of your story, because that is really what the series Bible is. It's like an encyclopedia for your book series. So you'll see here, I put in some themes, example themes: love, trust. A symbol could be something that appears frequently in your book. For instance, one book that I read had a bird, and every time that bird appeared in the book, it signaled something was about to happen. Any motifs, things that represent things in your story, if there is a specific object or a specific type of person that represents evil or a person that represents good, you could add that in as well. Miscellaneous information that is only known to you can be put in there as well. That's really what this page is for. All right, now we get to my favorite page. Now, this page is different from character profiles. If you've watched this whole series, you know that I keep my character profiles separate from my series Bible. I keep them in 2 separate binders. My character profiles are extremely detailed, where this is just a basic summary of who my characters are. You can add as many rows or columns as you think are necessary, but I like to make this just a very basic thing, about 2 to 6 sentences per character if necessary. And here I would just put in, their characteristics. These can be physical characteristics, personality traits, background information about their childhood or their arc, their fears, their likes, whatever information you want to include that is really like the need to know for that character. You could put in there, adding in their relationships with other characters, if they are in love with someone, if they're married to someone, if they have children, if they have other characters, and then any other important notes that you think need to know about this character. And then, of course, I have this, which will tell you if they are a major or a minor character. And you can see I have several characters in my story. It's a big series, and I haven't even finished outlining the whole thing yet. I still have yet to really nail down all the details for book 3. All right, character relationships. This is probably one of my favorite parts. So I have a lot of couples in my books, a lot of best friends in my books. And I like to kind of outline, how they met, how they got to know each other, any significant events, what their relationship is like. Do they have a good relationship or a bad relationship? And I write about a paragraph or 2 for each relationship. I add as many as I need. But this is basically just a summary of these 2 characters, their love story, if they have a love story, or the story of how they met, or why they are such good friends, why they go back so far, or if they're enemies, why they became enemies, what was it that happened between them, to kind of just summarize their relationships to each other, relationships to other characters if necessary, and you can add as many as you want, be as detailed as you want, or as simple as you want. Now, here we are getting into probably one of the categories that I get most asked about when it comes to my series Bible, and that is my timeline. I created a timeline in Excel. If you guys are interested in knowing about how I did that, please leave a comment or message me because I would love to put out a tutorial and a template for that as well. But this timeline for my series Bible is very simple. It's just a table. Now, I have 2 different options for you when it comes to downloading my series Bible. And if you don't want to use one, you can just delete it and keep the other. I have no problem with that. If you don't even think you're going to need this entire section, by all means, go ahead and delete this whole page if it's not going to be useful to you. But I've done 2 different kinds of outlines. So this one might be best for contemporary or science fiction or fantasy. This one I made, this is the one that I use because I write historical and biblical fiction. I will put down the year on the left side, or the month, or the day, depending on how you break up your story. It's completely up to you. You can change these as needed. And then I have 2 categories for fact and 1 for fiction. The fact category is where I'm going to put all the things that are fact that happened. For instance, in 1861, the Civil War began. There was the Battle of Gettysburg. The Civil War ended. Those are fact. Those are things that I need to make sure I am consistent with in my story if I'm writing about the Civil War. I need to make sure that I'm following, what is fact. Since I write biblical fiction, I try to do my best to track down the exact dates for things as best as I can. And then I create a fact timeline for what we know happened in the Bible. And then the fiction is what happens between my characters at that point in the Bible. So this would be really helpful for historical fiction writers to kind of figure out where their fictional story takes place in the real world. For contemporary, I have this over here. And this is just, spring, summer, fall, winter. And then each event as it happens in the story. If your story series takes place over a long period of time, this might be really helpful for you to kind of keep track of dates and things, especially if your characters get married or if they have an anniversary and you want to make sure that you are keeping track of that specific date. That is where a timeline might be helpful. And again, add as many rows or columns or delete as many rows or columns as are necessary for you to best keep track of your series. Now for setting, I'm sorry, I have to scroll down. I did insert a place here to insert maps or illustrations. That's what I'm scrolling past now. I have several maps in my series Bible, maps both that are fictional that I made for my character's dwelling place, and then maps of ancient Israel, ancient Palestine, where my story takes place. And then I go down to the settings page. So setting, again, be as detailed or as little minimalistic as possible. It's really up to you. If your town is based like a real location, if it's a real town, you can put in that information. For instance, if your story took place in San Francisco, you could write down a lot of information about San Francisco. If it's a fictional town or a fictional world that you made up, you can include as much background information as you'd like: social climate, political climate, actual climate, time period, and you can add in as many categories as you want. These are the main ones that I make sure to fill out when I am building a world or trying to make sure that I'm describing my setting. You can also, if you have research, you can add in quotes or links to different articles about your setting if that's something that is important to you. And of course, insert maps or illustrations if applicable, if you feel like that's something that you need to be able to physically refer to. Also, I have a little bit of experience making maps and blueprints and drawings, so if you'd like to see a video on that, be sure to let me know as well. But again, be as detailed or as not detailed as you would like for this. It's up to you. If you are literally inventing your world, you might really want to expand on this setting category so that you can really nail down the background of the world you're creating. But if you're basing this just on the town you live in, you might not need to be as detailed. It's really up to you. So then we have the inspiration page, and the inspiration page is really subjective, but I think this is what really differentiates maybe my series Bible from other series Bibles, that my series Bible is a series Bible for Christian fiction and inspirational fiction, in that I include a lot of Bible verses and references in my story. This is just one here. I'm still filling this out, but over here you can see, like, if you have verses or quotes or things that inspire you or lyrics or anything that you want to make sure you're remembering as you are building your story, things you want to make sure that you write down, or verses that you want to include in your story if you're writing Christian fiction. This would be a great place for you to plop all of those ideas. But other than that, I think this page is pretty self-explanatory. You can use it if you want, or you don't even have to if you don't even think it's necessary. Now, here we have the references tab. The references tab is where you can include, especially if you're writing historical fiction, any resources that you are using to write about your story. Any research you've done, if it's a website you found helpful or a source you found helpful and you want to make sure that you'll be able to find it easily, go ahead, write down the topic, and then write down or copy and paste the URL, web address, or where you found that information from. It's very simple to do, and that way you can use these hyperlinks to easily, if you're looking at this on a computer, you can click them and it'll easily take you to that source. Or if you are looking at this physically, you can type in that information to your browser, and it'll just really help you keep track of all the sources you are using, all the references, all the research that you are doing, which I think is really helpful as opposed to having a million saved bookmarks or saved tabs. And finally, there's the extras page, which is really just completely up to you. You don't even have to have this page, but if you want to write something down really quickly or jot down a note, this page might be really good for you. But other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory, completely up to you. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions, because I would love to make sure that I answer them all properly for you. All right, back to real Jenna, I guess, to close out the video.
All right, guys, thanks so much for sticking with me for these past 3 video tutorials of templates, free template downloads, and how I use these templates to create my own books, to write my own stories. I really hope that this has helped you guys in some way, shape, or form. If it has, please let me know down in the comments. And if you have other video ideas for things you'd like me to share, I have done a lot of different things for my book. I have drawn maps, I have made timelines, I've made family trees. So if you guys are interested in seeing any other parts of my process, please let me know. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video. Make sure you go over to my website, www.jennavanmourik.com. Over there I have a blog. I post newer book reviews every single Monday. I also have a resources tab and an FAQs tab. And of course, follow me on social media so that you never miss any update. I'm constantly posting posting to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm at Jenna Van Mourik in all of those places, and the links to all of those are in the description box as well. So make sure you go and check that out. There is a wealth of information in these description boxes, I'm telling you. Thank you again so much for watching. It seriously means the world to me, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!